All right. Oh, no one was in there. I thought there were people in the waiting room.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Well, yeah.
here they come. All right. Good afternoon, everybody, or almost afternoon. Thank you for joining us today on Tuesday for our Tool Time Tuesday. Hopefully everyone had a good Thanksgiving and is getting back into the work week. I know I've had a hard time getting back into things, but thank you so much for taking time and joining us today. I'm going to give it a couple more seconds. We'll start right at 12. We were just talking that Jenny saw snow today. So, and if anyone else has seen snow, let us know in the chat. I did not. I am in the Raleigh area. I wasn't even aware it was snowing anywhere else. So that's exciting. All right, well, I am going to go ahead and get started so that Jenny has all the time, the full 30 minutes to share all of her important information. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm Andrea Young, ECAC Parent Educator and Communications Lead. And today joining us, we have Jenny Hobbs, who is the co-founder and board chair of Advocates for Medically Fragile Kids, NC. This is a volunteer-run 501c3 who believe that every child in North Carolina who has a medically fragile condition, whatever their background or circumstances, should have the opportunity to live their best life possible and should have access to the healthcare, education, and other supports needed to make this a reality. So I'm going to turn it right over to Jenny. And Jenny, there you go.
Thanks, Andrea. Welcome everybody. I'm excited to be here. Feel like there's so much we could talk about, and there's so many topics that we wanted to discuss. So I thought I would just do an overview of our website and kind of show you where to find different things and things that you might not know about that are on there. If you're not aware, we just launched our website in June of this year. Let me make sure I do that right. And so definitely a labor of love, but basically wanted to try to get everything out to people that have been asking questions about things to just make it more accessible. So you can find it in your answer to your question, hopefully in the middle of the night if you need to. So this is our landing page, and I'm going to go here to Medicaid and waiver services. Can y'all see that okay? The drop down and everything.
Yeah, it's not as big. Is there a way to expand it a little bit bigger?
How's that?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So under waiver and Medicaid services, we have a drop down here. So we're going to go into the CAPC and innovations waiver tabs. But I did want to point out that there's information here about regular Medicaid as well. If your child has CAPC or innovations, then they also have access to all the services that Medicaid offers. And so things like private duty nursing, coverage for equipment, supplies, and therapies. So all of those things that anyone could, would have access to with Medicaid also would have it because you get Medicaid as part of having the waiver. Also, this EPSDT is sort of like a catch-all for kids under 21 that if there's something that's not in policy, but it's medically necessary to either diagnose or treat a condition, then an EPSDT request can be made to try to get that item or service covered. So under the CAPC waiver, if you're not familiar with CAPC, I'll go over it really quick. It's a program that's considered an alternative to institutionalization. And I just say that because the word institutionalization is scary and some people don't like to talk about it. But your doctor would have to mark on a form that the child meets institutional level of care. So if they say no, then that's an automatic disqualifier. So just know that it's a word that doesn't have to be scary. We're talking about programs that are designed to help keep the individual in the home by providing services in the community and in the home. So anyway, I just always like to try to reduce the stigma of that word. It's just institutionalization. So for the first step of the CAPC process, they're looking to determine if the child's medically fragile. So this is their definition of medically fragile. So by these little marks are the 3 categories. The child must meet something, one thing, at least one, in each of the 3 categories. So as you can see, primary medical, chronic medical condition, and that's compared to something that would be considered behavioral or a developmental delay only. Obviously, you can have those things and still have CAPC, but there has to be a primary chronic medical condition. The second criteria can be met 4 different ways that we have here, which I don't need to read to you all of them, but I will say 2D is one that is not as well understood as others. The others are pretty clear cut. So I like to think of 2D is there medical decision making that's necessary. So you would have to, and that medical decision does not have to be made by a doctor or nurse. It can be, but it can also be delegated to the parent. So medical decision making occurs when a child's having an asthma attack and you have to decide if they need their rescue inhaler, or if you need to, like, what do I need to do? A nebulizer? Do I need to call 911? Like that's medical decision making. Same with a seizure. You've been trained that at a certain point, I administer this seizure rescue med. So when trying to figure out if there's something that might fit that, think of it in terms of that. It also includes things that a nurse would do, like an IV or some kind of injection, but it doesn't have to be. And then for the third criteria, a life-sustaining device includes like a G-tube, a ventilator, a trach, something like that. The life-sustaining hands-on care is for kids who are not able to take care of themselves, move in a certain way. You're having to turn them, you're having to bathe them and dress them, all of those things. And then 3C is similar to that as well, but are they not age appropriate in the ADL support that they need? So the example I have here is with a 2-year-old that can't sit up. So in the bathtub when doing bathing, that would not be appropriate, that you have to still support them in a way because they can't sit up independently. So these are the things that I get the most questions over, and when there are denials, this is the criteria that typically we're examining to see if there was something that was missed. Happy to answer any more specific questions about that. On how to apply for CAPC if you think your child may be eligible. I always encourage people to apply if you think it's possible. I created a checklist here that if I click on it would open up another screen so that you can print it. But know that this is kind of a checklist and sort of the order of things that you would want to do them in. So starting the CAPC process itself is through calling Accenture and C-Lifts, which is that top one. They'll send you paperwork, you'll send it back. While waiting on that, once you've gotten a little bit further down the line, you'll want to apply for Medicaid directly. So that's through your county DSS office. It's Adult Long-Term Care Medicaid. They'll accept your application and you tell them that you're applying for CAPC, and they leave the application open to allow time for CAPC to make a decision. Also, applying for SSI can be done multiple ways. If the child doesn't already have SSI, And the rest of these steps are pretty self-explanatory, but know that this is here for you.
Jenny,
The next one,
there's one question.
yeah.
Do you recommend using the verbiage from the criteria list on the referral sheet?
Well, the referral form is filled out by the doctor, but I do, if it's possible for you to have the form with you when you're dropping it off, like at an appointment, and kind of going through the paperwork with the physician if if it's not something that they're familiar with. So if you're doing that, then yes, I mean, using the same language certainly helps. Medicaid used to be who handled all of the referral process and decision making, but that's no longer the case. They've hired a third party, which is Essentra, to now do all of this. They've been doing it a little over a year, maybe close to a year and a half now. And there's been a very steep learning curve. So if you can make it easy for them because the language matches, then that's awesome. But some doctors want to fill out the forms themselves, so you might not have a whole lot of control over that since it's not something that you're completing. So if the initial referral was accepted, which you can be denied at that initial referral process, and of course you have appeal rights. I'm happy to walk with people through an appeal to see what documentation they might need together to get the decision overturned. But if the referral was accepted, then the second step of the approval process is a full initial assessment. Those are sometimes done in person, sometimes over the phone, and sometimes by video conferencing. They used to all be in person, but sadly, this new process has messed all of that up, and COVID didn't help. So here we've kind of walked through all the things that you're going to be asked on the assessment. It might be helpful to kind of read through it and just sort of think of how would I answer that, because there's some that might require some thought that if you were asked on the spot might be difficult to answer right away. But I also know that some people require more time to process and kind of think through. So if you want to run through this to kind of know what to expect, we've even taken a little bit further, and down here at the bottom, there's a hyperlink to a printout version of this that you could actually fill out if you so desired, to just be prepared for when that assessment happens. Again, totally optional, but some people like that level of preparedness. And also at the top, there's a sample spreadsheet as well, because I think it's a good idea all the time to have a list of all of your child's providers and their contact information in one place. So not just for the assessment, but for life in general, when you're dealing with with so many different providers that you probably have in your child's life. So you can use this sample spreadsheet as well to use that to just kind of keep track ongoing, or create your own based off of it, like whatever works for you. I do talk about the denial process here. This is, step by step how you would go through a denial, including the contact information in case you happen to lose it. I will readily admit that it can be very intimidating to be on a call with, and during the appeal process. Excuse me, I feel like I'm losing my voice already. So I always say, have someone go with you, and not go, I should say, have someone attend with you, because most of the time these are all dealt with over the phone. Even going before the judge, it's done over the phone 98% of the time, I would guess, at least in my experience. So have someone with you, because you will get nervous. You will forget things that you meant to say. Prepare yourself ahead of time for that. The good thing is that there are kind of 3 steps to the appeal process. So if you don't have someone that can go with you initially, be on the call with you, then you've got other opportunities. But always try to have someone, whether it's a spouse, a friend, you know, you could ask a therapist if you were kind of really needing their input. I will attend with you if I'm available. I do that all the time, just to feel like you're not alone, because you can feel outnumbered in some senses. So anyway, moving on. So you've got mediation, preliminary hearing, and a full hearing. So those are kind of the 3 steps of the appeal process. CAPC services that are available. So if you get on the program, we've included all of the services here, and they all have little drop downs that kind of explain what the service is a little bit more. When there is a dollar amount attached to it, we've included that here. So like, for example, pest eradication, it's part of goods and services. So their budget is combined with that, as well as the nutritional services and non-medical transportation. And that total amount can't exceed $800 per fiscal year. And that is July 1st to June 30th. So for all of these different things here, we've included that. I was trying to think if there was anything special about any of these others. Some budgets, well, let's go to assistive technology. Some budgets are not per fiscal year, they're for the whole waiver cycle. So that is assistive technology, home modifications, and vehicle modifications. And so this budget is combined, all 3 of those, $28,000 per waiver cycle. So the waiver cycle that we're currently in ends on February 29th, 2028. So you would have that much to spend until then. And at that point, we would have a new waiver in place. Consumer direction is a way for the family to sort of direct the care that's provided to the child versus using an agency. So you have the option of either one. Doing consumer direction requires additional paperwork and some additional training, but it also allows you to hire non-licensed caregivers for A-level services, which can be really helpful if you have a friend or family member who you would feel comfortable with taking care of your child. You could hire them without them having to need a CNA license. Also, this is one of the ways that a parent can become a paid caregiver as well. The other way is through coordinated caregiving. There's more involved with consumer direction that you have to manage, but you can also offer more pay to the parent or to anyone that you're hiring. In terms of who's eligible to participate as a paid parent, I made this little diagram. So based on your child's level of care, and if you're not sure what that is, then ask your case manager. But if your child's a CNA, then we've got this little flow sheet that'll come up. There we go. Can you see that okay? Okay. So just kind of ask some questions so you can kind of walk through this flow sheet to see if a parent is eligible for that particular level of care. There are 5 extraordinary circumstances and that is one of the questions in all 3 ways is has one of the extraordinary circumstances criteria been met. So we've got them word for word taken from policy listed here. Number one is there aren't enough caregivers in the area to be able to provide the care that you need, which is pretty straightforward across the state at the moment. But also if your child has to be isolated because of an immune deficiency or they require 24-hour care, and the parent isn't able to work because of that, then that is also a way. So there's these flow sheets for all 3 levels of care, as well as sort of explaining the different ways, the different services for in-home care. We also have some information on transition. So when your child turns 20, you should be developing or have already developed a transition plan because CAPC ends on their 21st birthday. So you need to figure out, are they going to just stay in Medicaid? Are they going to transition to CAP-DA, which there's guaranteed placement into CAP-DA, or are you going to try to transition them onto the innovations waiver? To transfer onto the innovations waiver, they have to be on the wait list on the registry of unmet needs. But at the fiscal year they're turning 21, you can appeal, or not appeal, apply to your LME MCO for a CAPC reserve slot. All LME MCOs have some of these every year for kids who are aging out of CAPC. So even if you've only been on the waiting list 2 months or 2 years, if you can request a CAPC reserve slot. So, and facilitate that kind of transition and bypass the rest of the waiting list. So
Cindy,
that was
there's another question going back to paid caregivers. Mary says, I heard that they are requiring parents to take classes prior to being approved as a paid caregiver. Is this correct?
not classes plural. There is a training that you have to attend. It's offered online monthly. And they have not released the dates for 2025 yet, but we always have that on our Facebook event calendar so that people can find it and register. And we have it on the website calendar as well. So once those 2025 dates are ready, I'll be including those in both of those places. I last heard from DHB, I think it was early last week. They said that they were trying to finalize those and it would be out soon. So, oh, I see the other question. What is CareForth and how does it factor into CAPC services? So CareForth is one of the coordinated caregiving service providers, and I've got that here. So coordinated caregiving is a monthly stipend, and it's overseen by an agency like CareForth. There's a few agencies that provide this. This is available for all 3 levels of care, as well as a way for a parent to be paid. It provides agency oversight and support. So if there's something new going on with your child, they can come in and teach you how to do different things, which you wouldn't necessarily get with consumer direction, but consumer direction pays almost double. It's significantly more money if you go through consumer direction. So if you can identify someone that can be an employer of record, because it can't be the person providing care. So if you have a spouse or another family member or friend that would serve in that role, then you could be the paid parent through consumer direction as well. It's just a different offering. For some people, it is the best choice if they don't have anyone that can act as the employer of record. Oh goodness, we really are running out of time. Okay, I will try to move fast through this so we can take more questions. So here we've got, what the innovations waiver is, which is a little bit different type of waiver. If you don't know, it has an incredibly long waiting list. They're now saying upwards of 15 years in a lot of counties. Which is really, really unfortunate. But all the more reason to get your child on young. As soon as you get a diagnosis that is eligible for the innovations waiver, then apply for sure. Here's a brief rundown of how to apply. Essentially, you contact your LME MCO. If you don't know who that is, we've got the link, the hyperlink right here that will take you to the website that shows all of that. If your child already has Medicaid, while they're on the registry for unmet needs, they can access 1915 I services, which are some limited services, but it does provide some weekly care and respite as well to the family. It's important to note that on 1915I, the parent is not allowed to be the paid caregiver. But once on the innovations waiver, they are allowed to be a paid caregiver. So what happens when an innovation slot becomes available? Kind of walks you through the supports intensity scale, and sort of what the step-by-step process that looks like. We've got a little more information on the CIS. What if I'm denied is almost identical to CAPC, so we don't need to go through that. Innovation services that would be available once you get on there, we've got all of those included. Some you will notice as the same as CAPC, but there are additional services that CAPC doesn't offer, like supported employment and supported living. The community living and support is the one that's most like CAPC in terms of A-level care. That's very similar. But otherwise, they've got the assistive technology. Similar to CAPC also, they have services that are the fiscal year as well as the waiver cycle. And so, for example, assistive technology combined with vehicle modifications and home modifications, the amount for innovations is $50,000 per waiver cycle. I don't have the date of when the current waiver expires on here. I think we were waiting for the final dates with the new clinical coverage policy, and I don't think it's come out yet. But they also have goods and services, and that budget is $2,000 per year. So you will see that some of this is a lot different. They've got more money allocated than CAPC does in some areas. Relative as provider is the paid caregiver route. So that's what it's called there. You'll notice that some of the services are the same service, but called two different things in the two waivers. So relative as provider is the paid caregiver. And then employer of record is essentially consumer direction. So that is the family being able to choose the employees and train them and schedule them and all of that. And also, like CAPC, pay them more because you're not going through an agency. We've got a little bit here about tailored plans as well. So, which, you know, has started here in North Carolina. I've got information here on the enrollment broker, how to check and see if your medical provider is in network. And then how to contact the Medicaid ombudsman to assist with issues that you might have related to tailored plan or anything for that matter. I will say the biggest change with tailored plan is that now the LME MCOs are in charge of all the medical stuff and not just the behavioral health and innovation side. So it's not whether or not your provider takes Medicaid, it's whether or not they take partners, or not, partners is gone. No, yeah, partners is around, sorry. Partners via Trillium and Alliance are the four remaining LME MCOs. And so that's 4 more places your providers had to contract. So if that is you, then you definitely want to know ahead of time if your doctor is going to be in network or not. The only other thing I will plug in here is with our community resources page. We've got lots of different categories, everything from, you know, if you're wanting to do advocacy, where are some great places to go to, if you need education support, you know, we've got that. Of course, ECAC is my favorite place to send everybody. I just did that yesterday. But also, if you're waiting to get on some of these programs under our funding, scholarships, and financial support, we've listed some organizations that can help with some funding, as well as, oh, I was gonna say financial planning. Yeah, so this is where we've got most of our funding support listed. I've been as comprehensive as I am aware of, but I know that there is a lot more out there. So if you know of any resources and you want to send it to us, we've got a little button here. Please let us know, and we'll vet resources and add them to our page as we learn about them. So that was fast. That was a lot. I will say, if you're a person that thinks in timelines, we also created this what happens when. So this is, my child starts missing milestones that might impact their development. And so it's, contacting CDSA. As your child turns different ages, 2.5, so thinking about aging out of CDSA, about to start kindergarten, so thinking about needs in school when they turn 12 or 13, and that's about access to their medical information and how that changes. 17.5, thinking about guardianship, is that necessary or not? When they turn 18, of course, making sure they've applied for SSI. We've tried to kind of do a step-by-step. So if you're like, well, where am I going to be in 5 years? Or my kid is about to be 18. What am I supposed to be doing to prepare them for adulthood? So we've tried to put a bunch of resources here as well for you. So any questions? If we don't get to your question, there's a way, this info@fragilekidnc.org at the top. That email comes to me, so you can always send a question that way too.
Right, Jenny, I mean, if you have an extra 5-10 minutes, we can see if there's any questions. Happy to do that. While we see if there are any questions, I'm going to quickly launch a poll in case anyone has to jump off. Let me launch that. The grants that we work on require that we report back to them that what we're doing is useful, relevant, and of high quality. So if everyone could just fill that out real quick, that would be much appreciated. And if anyone has any questions and can stay another 5-10 minutes, we're happy to do that as well. My coworker, Christy, who is on the line, did mention that ECAC will be offering a Innovations Waiver Pathway webinar. One of those is this evening. She included the registration for that. I know there was a question before that. I had a parent ask me why they should apply for the waiver when the child can likely get Medicaid when she turns 18 and applies on her own. How would you answer that question?
I would say it depends on, look at the list of waiver services for CAPC and for innovations and see if your family would benefit from having any of those, because waiver services are only available to people on the waiver. So the Medicaid services are separate, and that, those are guaranteed services to anyone on Medicaid, but to access any waiver services, you have to have been on, you have to be on CAPC or innovations. So, yeah, I would just direct them to the list of services and have them just kind of look through it and see, well, would you benefit from that or not? And because of the CAPC reserve slots with innovations, if they really need innovation services, but they would also qualify for CAPC, you can be receiving CAPC services and then transition to innovations when turning 21, when CAPC is no longer an option.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions? We have some comments that this was amazing. Thank you. Helpful information. Thank you for all you've done for the community. I think this is an amazing website that makes something very complicated a little easier to understand. So thank you so much.
Yeah, that was my goal.
Yeah.
Some senses, working my way out of not a job because I don't get paid to do it, but it feels like my job because it's what I spend all my daytime hours doing. So, but yeah, not that I don't love talking to people about this all the time. I totally do. But like I said, if you're in the middle of the night and you have a question, you're probably not going to reach me in the middle of the night, I hope. And so yeah, that just gives you a chance to have a place to go look and see for yourself. And I've tried to make it a little more people friendly than the Medicaid websites are.
Yes, much appreciated. And as I mentioned in one of the comments, we will be sending out the website and Jenny's information. And I believe she did say she has some slides too that were too much to go over in 30 minutes. So we'll include that information as well. And this session has been recorded and will be on our YouTube channel. So you can find it there if you would like to rewatch or share it with anyone else.
Great. Thanks, Andrea.
Yeah, are there any other questions? I will say this is our one and only Tool Time Tuesday for December. We know how busy the month can be, so we are taking that next couple Tuesdays off from this, but definitely tune in January. That email with what we will be offering will be going out before the end of the year. I posted our YouTube channel up further. Let me get that again. We do have playlists on our YouTube channel. So you can look under Tool Time Tuesday, and this will be under that playlist. For some reason, I can't find, oh, there it is. Okay. I'll
You
post
did
it
it.
again.
Great.
Oh, there you go. Thank you, Christy. Faster than I am. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, we thank Jenny again for joining us. Thank you so much for sharing this valuable resource and your time. Much appreciated. And everyone, I hope you have a great rest of your month. Happy holidays. And thank you again for joining us. See you in the new year.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.